what do you love? And how do they make you feel? Do you feel happy? Do you feel safe? Do you trust them? When I was a 10-year-old girl, I got the chance to have my very first ride on a horse that belonged to a girl who used to come riding past the end of my drive every summer evening. And the minute I heard the clip-clop of those hooves coming down the road, I used to run to the end of the drive and beg her, "Can I stroke your horse?" And this became a bit of a ritual. And one night she said to me, "If you can get permission from your parents, I'll take you for a ride around the lanes tomorrow night." Well, permission was duly granted. And the next night, I got the chance to have my very first ride on horseback. I can remember that like it was yesterday. Like I was wearing green shorts, and I wouldn't let my mother wash them for weeks because the smell of the horse and the leather. I did that every night and kept them beside my bed. And that night, I fell in love with horses. Have you ever done something to that person or that horse that you love that you wished you hadn't? And more importantly, what have you done about that? By the time I was 16 years old, it became quite apparent that my professional life was going to have something to do with horses. So after I left school, I set about studying with the British Horse Society to gain the necessary qualifications to the intermediate level that would allow me to teach and train in a professional capacity. And for the next 25 years, that's when the struggles began. They wouldn't go where I wanted them to. They wouldn't stop when I wanted them to. There was a lot of bucking, a lot of rearing. Very often we couldn't catch them. But we just accepted that that's how it was. So if we say we love horses, then why is it that we spend our time around animals that clearly don't want to be with us? We feel anxious the whole time, we feel irritated, we feel very frustrated, let me tell you. And if we love horses, then why is it that we break them in and present them for competitions at ages under 6 years old, when it's a well-known fact that horses don't finish developing physically until they're 6, and mentally and emotionally, some much later, as late as 8 or 9. And why is it called breaking in anyway? 17 years ago, I was out riding with my young daughter, and we were riding to a friend's house, and I was on a young pony that we bought up from the New Forest. It was supposed to be a dream come true to take this wild foal and tame him and make him a brilliant riding pony. I'm a professional, remember? And in fact, that dream turned into a nightmare. And it culminated in this one particular time when as we were going to the friend's house, we had to go past a pig farm. Now, for some reason, a lot of horses are terrified of pigs. And there was no way that I could get him to go past the pig farm. And I did what every other person did. I got angry, I got frustrated, I was embarrassed, I was humiliated. I couldn't make him go. And with the sheer anger and force, I beat him so hard that I broke my whip on him. A year later, I attended a horse exhibition. And quite by chance, I saw this girl demonstrating what it means to be natural with horses. And I mean, as a professional, as hard as I looked, I could not see what that woman was doing to get her horse just to move with her. It was like magic. She went here, the horse went there. She went there, the horse went there. I couldn't see what was happening. And that day, I learned that there was 2 kinds of horse people on this planet. Horse lovers and the other kind. And the thing is, I thought I was a horse lover. But apparently, I was the other kind. I learned that there are so many things wrong in the horse industry. And I don't know why we even call it an industry, because horses, they're sentient beings, aren't they? horses are used for the tool of the human ego, and in most equestrian sports, a lot of horses suffer. And I wish I didn't have to tell you this, but if we just look as recently as at Cheltenham races, when that poor horse Sandstend is seen in mid-gallop, he breaks his leg, and he is trying to sustain the gallop, and he has bones sticking out from below his knee. Now, we recoil in horror, but to not to say that, to not to tell you, that horse was 5 years old. And nobody wants to talk about it. It's like the elephant in the room. We all know it's there, and we scout around. Nobody really wants to say that this is wrong. When I share this story, I'm doing a TEDx, right? So I've been talking to lots of people, and they say to me, oh, well then, I take it that that means that you don't like horse racing, that you're against that, and you're against any kind of horse competition. And I say, no, that's not what I'm saying, because to say that would be to deprive the most amazing horsemen and women who do embody what is important to the horse. And that would have deprived a fantastic show jumper by the name of Luca Moneta, when he came over in 2013 to jump the Puissance, our high jump in London Olympia. It was between him and one other horse. The fences are really big, like 7'2", and he's telling everybody, he's telling the organisers, I don't want to take my horse, she's done enough. And there's a little conference behind the curtain, and they're all deciding, like, they're begging him, please, please will you come and at least do the jump off. The spectators have paid a lot of money for this. And he's persuaded to take his horse back into the ring one more time. And his horse won the competition. And in his interview after that, they said, what happened there, Luca? What happened? And he said, well, I say to my horse, I take her in the ring, I say, if you want jump the jump, jump the jump. If you don't want jump the jump, don't jump the jump. It's fine with me. That is where my heart lies. So, which is beating quite hard, by the way. So for the last 16 years, I've travelled the length and breadth of this country trying to find out those missing pieces of the puzzle for me for those last 25 years. What I didn't know that that girl knew about how to have a good relationship with my horse. And it boils down to 4 fundamental things. So let me share them with you now. The first thing is that horses and humans have completely opposing sets of instincts. Who knew? Not me. We humans are predators. We have our eyes on the front of our head, and we're very fixed. And I want you now to feel what it feels like to be a predator. So can you just close your eyes? Trust me, please, and close your eyes. I'm doing it too. It's late at night. You're in the house on your own, and you hear a noise that you're not sure about. It's a creak on the stair or a door latch that's going. And as you try and strain to think what on earth that could possibly be, the hole under your tail goes tight, you are stiff and alert. As you're trying to figure out what on earth to do, the adrenaline is coursing through your body. This is your instinct, your predatorial instinct. And now when you open your eyes, who of you has got a hand like that? This is the hand of a predator. Hands that close quickly and open very slowly. Now the horse, surprise, got a different set of instincts. When he gets scared, his instinct is he has his eyes on the side of his head so he can see everywhere. He runs first, and only when he thinks he's put enough space between himself and what was scaring him will he stop. So great, horse running, human predator, that's the first reason for all the disharmony. Second fundamental thing that was missing, I had no clue about, was how horses communicate. It's via their body language and their energy. And the thing is, it's so subtle, but it can be learned. The third thing that I learned is what motivates horses. And this is a biggie for me because I had no clue. And it's 4 fundamental motivating factors. They're kind of like a hierarchy of needs. They're not in any necessary order because they reveal themselves at any given time that the horse finds himself in. They're comfort, safety, food, and play. So, do you know it's virtually impossible for a horse to eat when he feels unsafe? Equally, Who of you has passed a field of horses? They're just sort of standing around. They don't do very much. That's kind of called comfort. When they're done with that, they either eat a lot, they eat a lot. And then when they're done with that, they play games. And the kind of games that horses play are games of dominance. And the reason that they play those games, which they are starting to play now, you will see, it's very quick, but that's how they decide on the leader of the herd. And every day horses play these games because the leader of the herd is what depicts the safety of the herd. The safety of the herd is dependent upon the leader. And so now, every day when I go out to my horses, I need to be the leader, not the boss. Now we think of those two words, don't we? Leader and boss, like they just conjure up completely opposing ideals, don't they? I used to be the boss with my horses. It's my way or the highway. You will go down the road, you will go here, you will do this, you will do that. But a good leader doesn't do that. A good leader takes the time to find out what motivates their team or their partner. A good leader finds the courage within themselves to let go of the reins and invite their partner to take on some responsibility and independence. And as long as that other partner is quite clear of what is required of them, then they can feel confident in the leadership above that they are doing the right thing. And if that doesn't quite happen, then a good leader would kind of question it and say, why did you do that? That was interesting, and try and just redirect them. They wouldn't boss them. Now, the fourth thing is much harder. Every day when I'm called out all over the place to help troubled horse-human partnerships, those three things can be learned. They take some time, but they can be learned. But the fourth thing is we humans need to have emotional responsibility. And it is my responsibility when I'm with my horses to keep my emotions under check. And the thing is, as things were progressing in my journey, in my natural horsemanship journey, the horses were definitely going better. I was definitely happier. But there was something missing inside. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling like a horse lover. I hoped I would, but I wasn't actually feeling it. And it took me a little while to realize that what was stopping that feeling was the terrible shame that I felt for what I had done to Smiffy. That pony's name, by the way, is Mr Smiffy. The terrible shame, because what I'd done to him 17 years ago, I didn't want to look at it. I couldn't acknowledge it. I didn't want to think that I was possibly part of the problem. And by not acknowledging that shame, what I was actually doing was depriving myself of those amazing feelings that 10-year-old girl had that night when she first fell in love with horses. But with the help of an amazing therapist, who I initially did not go to see for my work with horses, it was something completely unrelated. She has the patience of a saint, helped me to understand and recognize that these negative emotions us humans have, they're there. And we need to, there's that shame again. And by acknowledging it, it doesn't make it right what I did, but it allows me to be completely authentic when I'm with my horses. And this is what I talk about with my clients on a daily basis. When they feel that proper emotional connection, things can really change fast. So now, when I'm with my horses or that of my clients, the love that I feel is real. And this is me now having a play with my baby horse Willow. I've had her for 2.5 years now, and she wasn't always like this. I've made so many mistakes with her, but I just feel I press my hand into her forehead and she's lowering her head. And if you look here, she's playing with me. If you look really closely, I haven't got any ropes on her, forcing her to stay with me. And when we take the ropes off, what we're left with is the truth. And here is my wonderful Mr Smiffy. I know that he's forgiven me because I have done a ton of stuff in bucket loads to tell him how sorry I was for what I did 17 years ago. And there's the truth. He wants to eat. But he's a horse. He's allowed to. Okay, so what's all this mushy stuff then about love and emotions? What's that got to do with the Horseback Heroine? Hold on, it's not the end of the story. 3 years ago, I gave chase to armed post office robbers across the open fields of the Romney Marsh, and that resulted in 2 men serving jail time and the media calling me the Horseback Heroine. It would have been rude not to take that as a brand, wouldn't it? But with that brand has come responsibility. It's my responsibility to share what I have learned. I can no longer hide behind the other people who gave me this knowledge in the first place. You know that day chasing those armed robbers, this conference, right, it's about courage, isn't it? That wasn't really a courageous act, because I just did what came naturally at the time. To be perfectly honest, I didn't even think about it, because I knew I had a good enough relationship with Mr Smiffy. That is fine, I didn't think. But what has taken courage is looking at my insides, the very core of who I am. You see, I never felt strong enough to take the heat, to say, this is me, these are my principles, this is what I stand for. And a lot of us are like that, I know. And I know for me, it was because I was afraid of what people would say or what they might think of me. And as I stand here before you on this TEDx stage, as vulnerable as hell, wishing and hoping that you don't hate or judge me for what I did to Mr Smiffy 17 years ago, I want to leave you with some final thoughts. But first of all, that pig farm situation was nothing to do with the pig farm. And it was everything to do with the fact that Mr Smiffy didn't trust my leadership. My leadership was rubbish, because if he was in a herd and he had a leader of the herd, he'd have gone past that pig farm, no trouble. He'd have been scared, but he would have gone. So it's understanding that. And so as we wrap up, I invite you, if you're ready, because if I had heard this message 20 years ago, I know I wouldn't have been ready. But if you are ready, we need to start asking a different set of questions. So instead of demanding, my horse should go down the road. I hear it all the time. My horse should go down the road. It should jump that jump. My horse has got to win this race. I don't care how much money you paid for your horse. Just because I paid money for my horses and they live and I feed them doesn't mean I own their mind. So we need to start asking a different set of questions. Which is, why won't he? Why can't he? What's in it for him? Can I express my intention without tension? And only when we ask those questions, when we look at our insides, will we come up, those questions will be easier to answer. And so, on behalf of all the horses, because they're mute and they can't speak for themselves, that's all I got. Thank you.